Welcome, 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 everybody. It is another WDD Live. We got DeHunzi in the house. Ruben, good morning from Colombia. Patrick, Whitespace is here. Donatas, Marco, Tudor, and Grant, say hello when you come in. Good to see you guys. Paul Burgess, good to see you. Carl, excellent, excellent, excellent. So what we're doing here, we are doing a beginner Q&A today. What we normally do on WDD Live is a bit of a variety show. We do website critiques. We talk about all the things that make a website successful. We talk about hot topics in the WordPress ecosystem. But what we're doing today is we are dedicating the full time. All the things that make a website successful. Where is this coming from? Where is the YouTube's ecosystem? Okay, hold on. What we're doing today, we're playing ourselves somewhere in the background. Okay, yeah, there's a rogue tab open. Okay. That's fixed. All right. We do deal with a lot of technical difficulties here on WDD Live. No, we're taking the entire time to answer beginner questions, and some intermediate questions probably too. Like, who gauges? Who gauges whether it's beginner or intermediate? I don't know. You do. The point of the live stream is that there's often times where we do Q&As where I think a lot of beginners sit on the sidelines. They just kind of watch and they're like, I kind of have some questions, but I feel like my questions are super beginner. It's too basic. Nobody wants to hear these questions answered. In fact, people might think I'm dumb for asking it, whatever. And so they just don't ask anything and they just sit there and watch. And most of the stuff probably is above their head. They don't really get much help. They don't really move themselves forward. So this is your permission, this live stream right here. You have permission to literally ask. It doesn't matter how basic you think it is, you get to ask the question. We're just going to clear up a lot of stuff for a lot of people today. And then, if you feel like your question's a little bit intermediate, then that's fine too. Just go ahead and ask it. If it's too advanced, then I'll just say, we'll save that for a typical stream. Okay. But I just want to prioritize people who are more in the early stages, more trying to sort all this stuff out, wrap their brain around different concepts and workflows. And there's so much stuff, right? This is such a technical industry. And it doesn't even have to be with bricks. Like, let's also give a little bit of structure to this. Your question could be about bricks. Your question could be about web design in general. Your question could be about grid. Your question could be about Flexbox. Your question could be about headings. Your question could be about something in WordPress, custom post types, custom fields. Like, whatever you are struggling to wrap your brain around, go ahead and ask the question. Now, you have to ask the question like this. Two things that I'll say about the question. Number one, hashtag Q or hashtag question. That way it actually goes in the questions area. If it doesn't go in the questions area, probably can't answer the question for you. So you got to use the hashtag Q or question. And then you have to, put a little detail into the question. Like, if it's super, super vague and I have no idea what you're talking about, then it's very difficult to answer the question, right? So just try to give as much, and I know you're limited on how much you can write, but just try to ask your question as specifically as possible, okay? We're gonna go ahead and get right into it. All right, D123, good morning. The knowledge jar is here from Frisco, Texas. Tommy says, best frames templates to create a small local service business for my son. That's not a question though, Tommy. You gotta put a little hashtag Q in there. Okay. All right, good. The questions are rolling in. We will start to get to those. There are no topics today. There's no demonstrations other than what is asked. So this is completely questions driven. We got to flood in the questions. Ask whatever, even if let's say you came across a question that a beginner had the other day. It's not even a question you really were super interested in, but you think other people might be interested in it. You can ask that question as well. We just need a lot of questions to roll in so we have a good show today and we can put out as much value as humanly possible. Okay, let me do a little search and we will dive right in. Okay. Antoine says, question, how to ask a question. Okay, great first start. Yes, you did it correctly. You did it correctly. I found your question. Question, can it be how to get your first client? Yeah, sure. So that would be in the agency freelance space, how to get your first client. This assumes, I guess, that you may not even have a portfolio, right? I don't think you should have your eyes on getting your first client, like your first paying client, unless you've already done some work for your own stuff, okay? Or done some work for other people. I'm a big fan of when you are brand new, just volunteering your services. I'm a big fan of that. You gotta get some like real world experience under your belt. And this is the first thing you've really done in the real world. So, I wouldn't even try to justify making somebody pay for it, right? It's kind of an experiment, to be honest. And you should be upfront with them about that and say, hey, I'm just getting started. I know you need a website. I'm happy to do it. I'm not going to charge you for it. But what I will say is make them sign a contract of some sort, right? Put structure into it like it's a real project. Treat it like it's a real project. Fire up some project management software. Go through the whole process. Outline what your process is going to be. Like, are you going to wireframe it first? Are you like, how's the design process going to look? Then you're going to go into the dev, whatever. Make sure all the tasks are there. Make sure they're assigned. Make sure there's good communication. Treat it like it's a real project. And then go from start to finish. What this is also going to do is it's going to allow you to really see how much work there really is. And I want you to kind of document the entire process as you go through it. All the things that you end up doing that maybe you didn't foresee having to do. Note all the times the person you're doing work for has change requests and opinions change and all this other stuff. You got to take note of all this stuff because this is going to happen in every real project. And this is going to help you price accordingly when you do actually start pricing things out. But I think you need to get a real world project under your belt. Don't even worry about the money. Just do it for the experience. Put it in your portfolio. Use it to start creating processes. Use it to get a glimpse of how this stuff actually comes together, from start to finish, and the hiccups and the hurdles and the challenges and the diversions and all this other stuff that goes on. And then you can start thinking about getting your first paid client. And you'll have a lot more confidence to get that first paid client as well. Okay, I was watching the Zendesk rebuild and you skipped making the icon category dynamic. Can you show us how? You skipped making the icon category dynamic. Zendesk.com icon. I think they've changed their site a little bit since then. Icon category. This right here, the guide, report, article, product thing. There is no. Okay, yeah. Because you have to choose the icon. Actually, probably. Well, see, here's the thing. There's a bunch of different ways to go about doing this. I would probably most likely just use CSS. So, are they on WordPress? What do they build their website with? Let's see what they've got going on here. Okay. I don't even know if. Yeah, this doesn't look like it. So in WordPress, automatically when posts are categorized, the name of the category gets attached to the post as a class, okay? And so what you can do at that point is you can style that. Obviously, you're going to use dynamic data to insert the name of the category. So that's just a standard dynamic data entry. It's hard. There would be a lot of infrastructure to set up. Like I had to go put in dummy posts. I got to categorize them. Then we got to go do that would take 30 minutes of our stream. But I'll try to explain it to you. So dynamic data, very easy to insert the name of the category. And then what you're going to do is based on the class, you can use CSS, just a pseudo element, to assign a custom icon ahead of that label, okay? That's probably the easiest way to do it. Then another way to do it would be, I don't even know if those are categories, honestly. We have to look at the architecture of the website. Are these posts in CPTs? Like, is there a reports CPT? See this? Am I not screen sharing? Okay, that does help. It does help if you screen share. See this right here? Report, guide, article, product. Okay, yeah, you guys should be able to see that now. I wouldn't have these as posts in the first place, okay? So there's a whole architectural discussion that has to happen here. This would be a CPT. Like, especially if there's a lot of reports that your company is putting out, then I do a report CPT. So all the reports go in this CPT here. And then are there a bunch of guides that you're going to be releasing? Well, to me, that says guides, custom post type. We put all the guides in the guides custom post type. And then you have, of course, articles. That sounds to me like posts. Those are actually posts. But then those would be categorized on their own. They're not in a category called article, okay? And then you have products. Obviously, that's not a post. But then again, I don't know. Is it, yeah, this just goes to a landing page, okay? So these are CPTs. These aren't even articles with categories. So this whole category situation is not even a category situation. So at this point, it's actually easier because you have a CPT, a CPT, a CPT, a CPT, and then you can assign an icon to every custom post type so that when you call that custom post type up, you're able to reference its icon. That's how you would do this grid. So to call them categories is a little bit misleading because they're not actually categories. They're just different custom post types. Then again, some people would try to do it as posts and categories. I would just think that that's not a great way to do it, honestly. So I would do the CPT route and assign an icon to the CPT. Okay, that's beyond. I wouldn't say that's a beginner. This isn't even a beginner topic right here, right? This is now we're in intermediate advanced territory of custom post types and custom icons, and that's probably the beginners are already feeling a little bit left behind, right? Okay, Dovber says, why do I have the non-activated classes in the right-click context menu? That's an ACSS question. We can come back to that maybe if we have time, but I want to keep these more to general web design because then, you know, we start to leave a lot of people out when we go specific into a tool that not everybody might be using. Question, when would you rather create a website with WordPress or when would you create one hand-coded? Well, I wouldn't create a hand-coded website in this day and age. People always suggest that it's like, well, for some of my projects, I use WordPress. For some of my projects, I use Squarespace. For some of my projects, I would use a custom hand-coded theme. And it's like, you have a business problem at that point. If your workflow is spread out over multiple platforms like that, that's a business problem. Like businesses work best when they have streamlined processes and workflows, when the team that operates the business is all on the same page and they've mastered the tools and mastered the workflow. This is how efficient work happens. Okay, it's the same reason I say you shouldn't be doing SaaS websites and e-commerce, or you shouldn't be doing service-based websites and e-commerce and mixing it up. Those are two completely different disciplines, two completely different workflows, two completely different sets of requirements, okay? So you're creating a business that is operating in this chaotic state. You should never be just willy-nilly swapping platforms, okay? You should be using one page builder. I've seen people, I use Bricks for advanced projects and Breakdance for simple No. This is chaos, absolute chaos. Pick a stack, master the stack. Everybody on the team masters the stack and you do work that fits into that stack. And that's it, okay? Now, if you want to dilly-dally and dabble and play with all these other tools and just see and have fun or whatever, fine. Yeah, go do that. But that's not what your business should be in the business of doing. With that said, I would never hand code a website. It's WordPress, 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 WordPress. And I don't see why it wouldn't be. It takes me 4 seconds to fire up a new dev environment from a blueprint. And then because my stack is the way it is, I can build literally whatever I want. And I can do it very efficiently, and I can do it in maintainable, accessible fashion. And life is great. I mean, what part of WordPress is like hindering me at that point, right? Other than the things I always complain about with WordPress, but it's not enough for me to abandon WordPress and do something else randomly for one specific project. So I'd say for, max business and efficiency and workflow and professionalism purposes, you got to pick a lane, stay in your lane. A lot of my websites are just full of boring design, a lot of 2-column layouts with image and text next to it. Do you have any advice on how to spice up the design? Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to spice up design. One thing to think about. Let's go with, of course, You know, you tell people, hey, live stream. Let me message them. You know, hey, got a live stream. You know, they still have other things on their agenda. All right. So let's get a good example here, just to show you. We can just talk about a couple different ways people approach this. Okay. Let's just scroll down here, right? One thing people complain about is you'll hear the term boxy. The website's boxy. Because if you've done Page Building 101 at all, I did a lesson called Everything is a Box, right? Literally everything is a box. You have to design with boxes. So the challenge is hide the boxes, right? You make it look less boxy by violating where the obvious boxes would be, okay? So for one example, this is obviously a box, right? But look at this background design, this glow that's kind of stretching to the edges behind. It's, you know, visually we know that there's a box right here, and there's probably a box that goes here, but this background seems to be violating the edges of where boxes would be, logically speaking. And so that helps break up the boxiness. Like we don't get the same, ooh, that's a boxy design. We don't feel that way because we visually see things that are violating where boxes would be. Another thing is with bento grids, right? So, and this is why bento grids are popular. You've got this longer card on the left and then a narrower card on the right, which creates a line down here, but that line doesn't line up with this line, which doesn't line up with this line. We're breaking up where the obvious boxes are, right? With the bento grids. Okay, we're also aligning things differently where we've got an image sitting right here at the bottom of the card, kind of in the center, yet this image is off to the left, attached to the left side, attached to the bottom. This one's back in the center, but this one is back to being attached. This is attached only to the bottom. And then this is back to being in the center. So we've got some variance in what's going on with the cards here. We've got this is done with columns, but it's done in a slider. But you can see the off, right? The lines don't line up, right? We're breaking up the boxiness. It's not just a grid. It's not just a grid with finely defined areas. Some of these cards are longer, some of them are shorter, they fit in, fill the gaps, okay? And then we come down here, that's a standard footer. All right, there's nothing exciting about that footer. Nothing really exciting about the header all that much either. But you saw in some areas where they're attempting to break up the boxiness. Now, how do you do that? Here's one that actually looks quite boxy, okay? So let's go here and just kind of compare. Boring, boring hero, right? Come down, very boxy, literally just boxes in a box, okay? Come down, again, boxes in a box. Not to say that this doesn't work and it's clean, but like this is what people are gonna criticize for like being boxy. Let's go down to, let's just do one more. We don't wanna spend too much time on this. Okay, look at this. Look at how these visuals that are going around the outside violate our understanding of how things are laid out on the web, right? So, naturally, that creates more visual interest. It also frames, same thing in photography. In photography, you can use what are called natural frames to frame the real subject, right? And that's what they're doing visually here. These are a natural frame for the subject. So this all draws your eye into the center where the content is, right? So now, can you just wing it? Can you just randomly play stuff and this all works out? No. That's why design is a talent. That's why design is an art. That's why design has principles. There's spacing principles, there's rhythm principles, there's typography principles, there's positioning principles, there's principles dealing with width, okay, and height of objects. There's so many. And so it's an area of study. You have to study to get better at it and hopefully eventually get good at it. So to go from I don't know the first thing about design to wow, that's a really inspiring design, that's years. That's years, right? But you can start to look at why certain designs work and why certain designs fail. And then you can avoid the obvious failure points. And that's gonna start to improve things dramatically. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, question on best practices for using, I'm trying to do my best to rapid fire these. Question on best practices for using images, especially with frames, how to set the right pixel dimensions, aspect ratios, things like that. I want the image to have enough resolution to look good. Okay, so if we are in the builder and we drop in a frame, let's go ahead and use this one as an example, okay? So we will bring in, do we have anything here? Okay, let's use this right here, okay? And actually, let's see. Man, that's awesome, right? You just use a little utility class, flip that guy around so he's looking at the content. It's very easy, okay. Anyway, so this image right here, let's go look at this on the front end. Just take a quick look, because I think this is actually quite important, right? This out of the box, and this is because every website has a different content width. The content width of the website is from here to here, right? It's what creates the initial box, right? The initial box that structures the layout is the content width of the website. That obviously varies from website to website and project to project. If I go to websites, we can see this is 1366. Now this could have been designed on 1280. Look at how this looks on 1280. That's 1280 right there. And then let me reset it. Look how it looks on 1366. Which one would you say is better, right? 1280 looks like this. 1366 looks like this. Now let me point out one thing that I am seeing. I like that the content width here at 1280 forced this headline to wrap earlier, which actually makes the headline look more balanced, right? And then this paragraph, I feel, is kind of looking a little bit more balanced as well. I mean, look how it's stretching kind of over here, all right? And so this actually goes along with the previous question, and now we'll talk about the question about images. Now, does that mean I'm gonna switch my content width from 1366 to 1280? No, but what it does mean is I might do some pruning, okay? And what that means is, let's go into the actual builder. Like I would do little stuff like this, okay? So I would come in, I might even do it with the class. I might do it on the ID. If I only wanted to affect this one heading right here, I might do it on the class. There's actually a couple different ways you could go about handling this. One way, actually, yeah, let's maybe talk three different ways, and then it's up to you to learn what are the pros and cons of these things that I'm doing. Like, and I'm always battling the pros and cons list, and I'm trying to figure out, all right, if I do this, it has more pros than cons. These other methods probably have more cons in this specific. So I'm gonna go, there's probably never a perfect way to go, but there's definitely one that has more pros and less cons, right? So I could do this at the class level, and I could say something like 30 characters, let's do 20 characters, 10 characters. We gotta find a character count in here that actually gets us to what we want. So now I have that more balanced heading, okay? But what I did is I put a character limit, essentially, on the class, which means every Hero Victor heading is gonna have this character limit. And maybe this doesn't work for other headings that are in my other hero sections that use the same layout. So maybe I don't want to do it at the class. Maybe that's a little too heavy-handed. Okay, so what I might want to do is just do that at the ID level. So now I'm only affecting this one heading, okay? Which is fine, right? But are there other methods we could use? Yeah, there's another method we could use, which is actually coming to this grid layout right here. So we have the box on the left and the box on the right. And we could just set a bigger gap, right? And we could find a gap value that actually does that. See? So now am I saying that's the better way to go? No, but look what it did. Like it kind of did the same thing. But it also has the effect of putting the image further away from the rest of the content. Do we want that to happen? I don't know. These are decisions that you have to make, right? Let's go back to grid gap. Another thing that you can do is you can take this box over here, like the entire box, instead of just the heading, and you could put a max width on that, and you could do a character count. Let's see if there's 20, there's 30, 40, 50, 40, something like that. This creates what is like a virtual gap. Like I didn't change the gap in the grid, but visually speaking, clearly that gap is larger than it used to be. Why? Because I just shrunk the box that's on the left-hand side. Okay, so I didn't change the gap, but I did achieve a bigger gap, but I also achieved this tighter like content layout. let's just go look at that on the front end and see what that does. I mean, that looks really good. Like that, the tightness of the left column over there looks better than it all being like spread out and stretched out, right? And the fact that there's a giant gap here, it still, in my opinion, works for this layout. It actually gives the image a bit more breathing room, or gives the text more breathing room, however you want to look at it, okay? But look at how I just went through, like, man, so many different ways to kind of start to achieve that same outcome, right? And there's even more that I didn't cover. And so this is always a game of like, let's just try to choose the thing that has the least downsides and the most benefits for what we're trying to accomplish. Now, this image right here, if I select the image, I go over here, oh boy, full. I'm loading the full resolution image, 1917 pixels wide. Does that need to be happening here? No, clearly not, okay? I mean, we can go to the front end, right click, inspect, okay? And remember the trick. I mean, you can inspect anywhere on the page if you want to. See this little arrow? You click that little arrow, you can start hovering things. And it'll just automatically inspect whatever you're hovering over. And you can just hover over the image. It's gonna give you the dimensions right there, 667 pixels wide. So if we load something that's roughly 667 pixels, we should be good to go. We need to be as close to that as possible without going below it, okay? Now there's obviously the topic of retina screens that we might have to talk about as well, okay? But we're trying to keep this as simple as possible right now. So we're gonna go in and just look at our dropdown and see what is available to us, okay? 768 seems like, you know, it's pretty close. It's over, it's not far over. I would probably choose the 768 and I would save. And then we go back and we refresh on the front end. Still looking quite good, right? But it's loading a much smaller file size, okay? Then we wanna talk about potentially like issues with FAUC, flash of unstyled content, right? Where this image loads, we need to make sure that the height is reserved for it. Now, it's probably not gonna be a problem in this particular grid because there's already kind of a placeholder for it. But you would wanna learn how to set heights on the image tags. We'll maybe get to that later if somebody wants to go into that level of detail. But that's neither here nor there for the actual resolution question that was asked. So we will keep moving as quickly as possible. Okay, let's go to, let's see, make sure I don't skip any. Best practice, okay, we did that one. Okay, so this question, Tommy, is hard to answer. Frames templates to create a quick local service business site for my son. He paints parking lot stripes. You could literally design that website 100 different ways, right? And nobody is to say, well, that way is better than that way unless they have data, right? What's the most important thing is figuring out what do you need to communicate to the people, who's the target market, and what do they need to hear to convince them to hire, and what do they need to see, okay? So what they need to hear is gonna determine what copy gets written, and what they need to see is gonna determine what visually you're putting on the website. Like for example, parking lot stripe painting, there needs to be a lot of pictures of that. There probably needs to be a video of that happening, right? We need to see the thing in action. We need to see the service being done. And when you see a bunch of examples of the service, obviously that's proof that we know what we're doing, hopefully, okay? So we already know there's gonna be a gallery of some sort. Now, we also have to figure out, why do people choose one parking lot stripe painter over another parking lot stripe painter? What are they looking for? What are the differences? Are they all the same? And if you come to the conclusion that, well, I mean, they all use the same template, they all are out there for the same amount of time, they all charge roughly the same thing, it's not a highly technical skill, it's just literally, they're gonna hire the first person to do it. Okay, so you're a commodity, my friend. So what I would say is you don't build the website. You get out of that business. You retire and you go into a business where you can actually add unique value of some sort. Because principle number one of a business or product or service or anything is that you have a unique selling proposition. You have a unique angle on what this thing, on how you offer this thing or what this thing offers you, if it's a product, right? If you have no unique angle, get out of the business. You have no business being in the business, okay? So that would be the first thing I would ask your son. I'd be like, what do you do differently than what these other people do? Now, if he goes, listen, Listen, I pioneered this process where I can actually paint the parking lots. I can stripe them. Half is, double. I don't see, my dyslexic brain is like, the fucking double? Is it half? What? In half the amount of time, okay, I can do the parking lot in half the amount of time. And you're like, damn, I need to see this. I need to hear about it. And he's like, yeah, let me show you. He does it on video, right? And then you put in stats and you're like, look, the average parking lot striper takes them 17 hours to do a parking lot this size, right? I did it in 9 hours. Okay, well now, I mean, that's fantastic. You got something people actually sounds like they care about, right? Now we've got a way to market this thing. But if that's not happening, doesn't matter what the site layout is. Doesn't matter what it says. Doesn't matter. You're a commodity. Don't do business as a commodity. Do business as a valuable, unique offer, okay? So I don't think you're ready for the website yet. I think you have to have a talk with your son and figure out what do you do that's special, son, okay? And if he doesn't know, then tell him choose a new job, choose a new business, okay? Find a way to be unique. And if you can't, you're not ready to be in business yet, okay? All right, good. Let's see. What is the proper way to pin an SVG on the right side of the screen? Half in the viewport, half off screen, while also cropping any overhang on that right side. What's the proper way to pin an SVG to the right side of the screen? Half in the viewport, half off screen. I have to read everything twice. While also cropping any overhang on that right side. Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be... let's see, Hero Vic, let's make sure that this will just, I mean, it doesn't have to be, there's nothing special about an SVG in this case. Is this position static? Okay, it is. So media wrapper, let's go layout position, let's go absolute, and let's go top 0. Is this gonna stick? Yeah, to the section, okay. So right, let's do 100%. And let's do left auto. Let's do right 50%. Let's see where this thing is going. I'm gonna see what it's attached to. Oh, I'm sorry. Left 100%, right 0. Okay, and bottom we'll do auto. Okay, so top 0, right, auto, bottom, left 100%, 50%. Where did you go, sir? Okay. If you want to split it down the middle, we need to know the width of the image, right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to take it over and then bring it back its width, right? And stick it exactly half on the right-hand side. Now, I didn't set a width on this image. It's just the width of whatever the grid was allowing it to be. It's actually 100% wide. So it's filling that grid space. So we would have to go up and set a width on it, right? But let me show you something about going to the right. See how it's going off the screen? It's getting close to being 50% roughly. But let's go take a look at this on the front end. So the one thing you need to know about this problem is this, right? This is the problem you're gonna run into. That anything that goes off the right side is gonna overflow the site. Anything that goes off to the left side is actually not gonna create any overflow. So it's much safer to stick things off to the left than it is off to the right. But you can solve this in the section itself. I need to probably not do these on the classes because it's going to screw up all these classes in here. But we can go to layout and then find the overflow. I'm trying not to write CSS for this stuff. I'm just trying to use all the builder inputs because, you know, beginner stream here. Let's see. Why is overflow hidden? Yeah, that should be main row. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see. I don't know why it's denying the overflow hidden. There could be other shit going on in here. Let's inspect. Let's go section, overflow. It is hidden. Okay. ID, block. Okay. Oh, let's go. Okay, I think I know. Let's go style, layout, position, relative. Okay. Let's see if that does it. No. Okay. So now we'd have to sit here and debug, right? Why is it ignoring the overflow hidden and go in and see what else is going on? Because theoretically it should be doing it. Now, if I miss something obvious, somebody can drop into the comments. But this also goes to show you why going off the right side of the screen does cause problems that you're then going to have to solve. Now, what I would say is, I don't think I can get back to that example that we had earlier, wherever they were framing stuff with the images. I don't even remember what site it was now. But You can stick things to the edge. Sometimes what the designers do is instead of overflowing it, they do it in Figma to where they're cutting the images off, and you literally just stick them to the right edge. They don't actually overflow. And if they don't actually overflow, they don't cause the problems, but they do look visually like they are overflowing the edge, but really it's just a cut image and it's stuck to the edge of the screen. So that's a little bit safer way to do it, but it is a little bit more difficult to manage because you got to do that kind of work in Figma. Okay, let's go to the next one. What is the proper way? Okay, we got that. How to select source set images for cards, page photos, etc. I'm struggling how different photo sizes are selected. Source set, well, source set's different, okay? Source set is kind of happening by default. Let's get rid of this layout and bring a new one in. So let's go to, let's see, just this one right here, okay? Whatever, just random content. Let's throw an image in there. That one will do, okay? All right, perfect. So when you choose this, right? Let's go check this out on the front end. Let's go inspect. Why is it not refreshing? Okay, there we go. Inspect. Okay, perfect. All right, source class. See this source set information right here? The builder in this case, it's helping you out, right? It's doing source set for you. So this is Bricks just doing that work for you. But the other image sizes need to exist, right? So Bricks does, I think in their settings, I don't think it lets you choose, but let's go look at the settings. Like where do these other image sizes come from is kind of the question, right? So if we go to Bricks settings and we look at maybe under performance, no, maybe under general, there's gonna be one setting in here that says something about image sizes. Here we go, generate custom image sizes. So toggle that on if you don't have another way to do it. Now there's multiple ways to do it, okay? But if you don't have another way to do it, or you don't know an alternative for this, then do generate custom image sizes, and Bricks, when you upload an image, will create different versions of it. And then it will serve those versions in source set by default, right? So there's not a lot to really worry about there when you're using a page builder like Bricks that is doing this for you. Now I think I'm sure Oxygen probably does it these days, but in the old days of Oxygen, it didn't do source set. You had to do some extra steps and things like that. And then it kind of did it wrong, if I remember. So it's been around long enough now that I think this is not a problem anymore. The page builder's doing the heavy lifting for you in this regard. What you need to make sure you do is measure that image, right? When we inspect it and we get the actual dimensions, 485 pixels wide, you just need to make sure you're not loading like the full resolution version of it. In this case, that image full resolution is 720. That's a low resolution image. But if we get, let's see, 720 by 1080. A lot of these are, okay, this one's 1920, okay? So see, that's the full, I'm loading way more resolution than I actually need here. So the only thing you need to do really is make sure you make the appropriate choice with regard to the slot that image was inserted into, and then the page builder is going to handle the rest. Okay, all right, perfect. Let's go to the next one. What do you use nice, very nice, and human for? Nice, very nice is just another like inspiration gallery of like website designs and stuff. Human is just a way to play with different color schemes. So you can use like this color scheme generator thing. I actually don't use it all that much. It's just kind of in there because I don't know. I don't use it all that much. I like Lappa.Ninja for, they update it very often, okay? Like every time I go to it, there's 5, 6, 7 new websites in there. And it's just kind of like the latest of trends, right? You're gonna see a lot of ugly stuff in there for sure, but there are a lot of good examples of website designs as well. I'm starting from scratch to rebuild my website. I plan to use Bricks. I am new to website design development in WordPress. Where do you suggest I start? Well, first it's like, what site are you building? Who's the site for? It always goes back to who is the visitor of the website. What do we need to tell them? What do we need to show them? Coming up with a narrative and order of your content, and then starting to build the layout. Now, all websites are built with basic patterns. Like you're gonna see the same patterns repeat over and over and over and over again. in my estimation, the best thing for a beginner, an ultra beginner to do is to use a framework like Automatic CSS. And I'm not the only person who says this, all right? Like Dave Foy's new course is coming out. Guess what Dave Foy is gonna tell you in that new course for beginners? That it's best to start with a framework. Okay, a lot of people will argue that it's best to not start with a framework. Well, guess what? When you don't start with a framework, you, my friend, are in the wild, wild west of web development. Like literally every option is available to you. There's 8,000 paths that you could potentially take. Just in this, let's just go here, okay? This heading right here, right? So there are 5 different ways that you could set the font size for this heading. I mean, you could use viewport units, you could use rems, you could use pixels, you could use clamps, you could use a max function, you could use a min function, you could just in this heading alone. What do you, and then you can't use a raw value. That wouldn't be very smart. You want to tokenize it. Well, where are you going to do that tokenization? How many things are you going to you've got to tokenize nearly everything that you touch, okay? To ask a beginner to do all of that, to think through all of that, this is not happening. It's not possible. This is not a practical scenario, right? So if you leave them to their own devices and you say, no, don't use frameworks, don't use libraries, don't use this, don't use that, just learn from scratch, it's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be absolute chaos. Everything's gonna be done wrong. It's gonna be absolute chaos. They're not really gonna learn all that much. And so I've come to the conclusion, Dave Foy has come to the conclusion, many people are coming to the conclusion, it's actually better to start with a framework because the framework creates a lane for you and it keeps you in that lane and it gives you best practices available at your fingertips and you still get to make lots of decisions, but you're making those decisions within guardrails. There's like guardrails. You're not just gonna fly off the edge of the cliff and die in a burning ball of fire at the bottom, right? Which is very easy to do when you're just winging it and everything is from scratch and there is no framework to guide you. There's no nothing happening. You, the non-expert, is just making lots of crazy decisions and I just guarantee you it's gonna be absolute chaos. So you get a framework like Automatic CSS, you take frames. What does frames give you? General patterns of how websites are laid out. And then you put in the general patterns and then you start to tweak and design from there. So you're still working, you're still learning, you're still doing things, but you're doing it with tokens, you're doing it with, like the guardrails of the framework, colors, yada, yada, yada. And then you can follow other principles, and you can follow other tutorials much easier. And there's less to think about, and there's less to manage, and there's less to screw up, okay? And then as you get really good at that, you are going to learn CSS along the way. There's gonna be, oh, this thing needs a little bit of custom CSS. Okay, let's learn that, right? Let's do that. But you've taken the amount of decisions you have to make and the amount of things you have to learn, and you've reduced them dramatically. And it's actually a much more controlled environment and a much more simplified environment for doing the work. And for a beginner, I think that that's exactly what's needed. Okay. Let's move on. Let's see. Demonstrate how a beginner should use Whimsical. So actually, you don't even need Whimsical anymore. Let's go. I'm going to open Figma, but I'm going to pull it over here because I don't know what it's going to pull up. We don't want to pull up any secret Figma projects. Okay, it's just my thumbnails thing. All right, so let's go to, oh gosh, well, that could be problematic. How do I go to home without seeing all the other designs? Okay, let me pull it over here. Let's go here. And let's go to, let me get this down. Figma, it's just giving me a blank screen. I've never seen this in Figma before. Let's go to, oh, it's the new drafts area. Yeah, they changed all this. Okay, let's go to Fig Jamboard, I think is what we want. Then I can pull it back. Okay, good. Where's the control for this? Because they just added this recently. Yeah, flowchart, here we go, mind map. I don't want to generate one. That's AI shit, dude. It kills me. Mind map. Here we go. I don't know why they make it so freaking hard to find. Okay, so all I used to use Whimsical for is architecture of a website, right? You can use Figma now for it. So I'm ditching Whimsical. It's not needed anymore. And so you would say like Geary.co, right? And if we actually pull this up, let's go to Geary.co here. Okay, let's bring this in. See if we can do a little split screen. What? Come on, Arc. Let me resize here. There we go. Okay. And let's hide the sidebar right here. Okay, so we can see some of the general structure up here, right? Where we go about, okay? And then we have projects, and then we have videos. This is how you, before you build a website, especially if it's gonna be a website with any degree of complexity. Like, okay, I understand a simple brochure website, you might not need to do this, but I do it for every website. But if it's gonna have any degree of complexity, I would highly, highly, highly recommend mind mapping like this. And this is a really just good, simple way to plan out architecture, right? So we have our videos, and then we have consulting, and then we have our blog, which I actually put the blog on this side of my mind map. And then I'm gonna do, we've got this section called insights, and my talking head down there is really annoying, isn't it? And then we're gonna do tools, okay? And then what we do is we branch out from here, like projects. So obviously there's ACSS, right? And then there's frames. And then there is the inner circle. We can put that under projects, okay? Videos, I might do the categories of videos here to plan those out. And then insights, if there's categories related to the insights, I might plan those out here. Blog, I'm absolutely planning out categories over here. Like we might have a web design category, right? We might have an SEO category. And then what I'm doing typically is I'm going in to Ahrefs or something like that, and I'm starting to do my keyword research. You can do your keyword research wherever you want to go. But when we get into blog, web design, I would start actually putting in topics for web design articles here, and I would put some of the keyword data next to it, right? I've shown how to do this in detail in the inner circle. But you end up with a full architecture planned out. You know what your CPTs are gonna be. You know the URLs of all of these things, which also goes back to based on the keyword data. You have keyword data to show you, all right, we can't build this entire thing at once, so what do we prioritize? Well, we prioritize based on SEO. And these are conversations you actually end up having with the client, because when I do a full site architecture and I've put all the article ideas in and all the categories and I put all the CPTs and I've said, okay, this is also gonna have something like a service area network, all right? So we'll say service areas, and let's pretend this is a service business, right? So we might have Georgia, maybe we end up with like Florida, maybe we end up with like Alabama, okay? And then in Georgia, we've got like city one, let's do this like with real cities. Okay, so we might have Atlanta, we might have Macon, we might have Savannah, okay? And then we're doing this look how complex this is getting, right? We need to be able to see it with a bird's eye view. We need to understand what's a CPT, what's a parent post, what's a child post, how are these templates gonna work? Well, you can't determine these things really until you have a bird's eye view of it. And then you could start to really plan how you're gonna attack this. The idea that some people just pull up WordPress and start willy-nilly creating, man, I don't know, I wouldn't go that route. I wouldn't go that route, okay? Get this plan done like this. Get it in your mind how all this is gonna work together. What's gonna be a template, what's gonna be a page, what's gonna be a post, yada, yada, yada. And then you can actually start building from the ground up. This is what I was using Whimsical for. Thankfully, if you're a Figma user, you don't need Figma and then Whimsical. That's 2 subscriptions. You can get rid of the Whimsical subscription and now just use Figma for this part of it. You just reduced your tool set by 1. And things are more efficient now. And it's really nice, by the way, that your architecture can live with your wireframe, which can also live with the full UI design all in one place now. It was really annoying that I had my wireframes and designs in Figma, but I always had to go to Whimsical to get the architecture. Now it's all in one place. Way, 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 way better, okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. That was just a little quick demo. All right, let's see. I'm ranking top 3 on Google for some very competitive keywords when it comes to web design, like freelance web designer near me. I am wondering what I can do to best convert. Well, if you're ranking top 3 for relevant keywords, then you should have traffic, right? So the first thing I would say is go into your analytics. How much traffic did you get? Now you go look at a something like this, okay? You should literally be able to tell, well, my homepage, right, got 10,000 visitors last month, okay? But the projects page got 1,000 visitors last month, right? If my projects page is like a super important part of my website, like I really want people to be going to my projects. Now, this doesn't really apply on this website because they can literally go right to the third-party website from here. So the traffic isn't actually going here, but you can monitor clicks on these things, whatever. But what I'm showing you is kind of a funnel-based approach to looking at analytics. So you say, all right, my homepage got 10,000 a month, and then my services page only got 500 visitors. Well, that seems like a huge disconnect, doesn't it? Like they landed on your homepage. You can look at the bounce rate of your homepage. Are they bouncing or are they going somewhere else? If they're going somewhere else, where are they going? You want them to go to services. Why are they going somewhere else? Are they going to about? Okay, well, that might be fine. Do we need to find a way to get them from about then over to services because they're not making that jump? Or why are they going to about before they go to service? Like, these are the questions you start to ask yourself, but it all comes down to analytics at this point. You did great by ranking, you say, top 3. That tells me if those are relevant keywords, you should have traffic. So I can't answer the question unless I look at the actual data now. Like you did a great job of presumably getting data. We have to now look at the data. And if it's 10,000 people arrived on your homepage and you have a 98% bounce rate, that tells me they don't like what they fucking see on your homepage, right? So now we know we need to change things on the homepage. If they didn't bounce, they just went somewhere else, right? Now it's a question of where did they go? Why did they go there? Okay, what's causing them to go there for the most part? And can we swap that out? Can we get them to the place we actually want them to go? And then we run a test. So it's like, well, let's make a change. Now let's monitor the analytics. Let's see if that change helped that visitor, those visitors, that cohort, flow in a new direction. And if it did, now they're on our services page. So now next month, it's like, okay, well, last month it was 1,000 got to our service page. Now we got 4,000 to our service page. We did better pushing them to the service pages where we wanted them to be, but now they all bounced. Well, guess what? They don't like what they see on your services pages, okay? So now we got to figure out what's causing them to bounce there. Now, we could make some assumptions and some guesses. We could run some tests. We could publish some changes. We could monitor the analytics, or we could go further into the analytics. And we could say, okay, well, maybe we need some heat mapping on this page. We need to see how far down are they even getting? Are they getting to the service page and just bouncing right away? Or are they actually scrolling down? How far are they scrolling down? We might want some cursor tracking. We can see exactly how the last 100 visitors are actually integrating with the website, like how they're using it by watching them literally use the website. There's screen recording software, very easy to implement, where you can actually watch users use your website. So there's so many different kinds of analytics that you can start to use to figure this out. What you don't want to do is just willy-nilly make a bunch of changes and then monitor the results with general analytics, because you're going to be doing stuff that maybe works, maybe doesn't work, that overwrites other things that were already working. Change one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time, and then see if you get the outcome that you want. But what I tend to do is I add other tools into the mix, okay? I want to answer other questions before I start making changes. Not much more we can do without actually looking at real data, looking at real analytics stuff, but that's kind of the general process that you would go through. You have to be okay with data telling you a story, right? Analyzing what that story is telling you, and then see if we can make a change, publish it, make a new story happen. But you have to do it in a very structured way. Apart from the excellent Kevin Powell, is there anyone else on YouTube you'd recommend to learn CSS from? I mean, I definitely do Kevin Powell's course. I mean, I've never taken it personally. I think CSS is one of those things, and I actually feel the same way about JavaScript. Like, I don't really like courses all that much. For CSS and for JavaScript, I don't like courses. I like, here's a problem, we're going to solve it with CSS. Or here's a problem, we're going to solve it with JavaScript. And in the process of solving that problem with CSS or JavaScript, we're going to go slow and talk about the principles of the things that we're doing. And that's going to teach you. And if you do that enough, you start to wrap your brain around it. But courses are always, to me, it's like very boring. The JavaScript is like, let's print hello world. Let's do shit that you never want to do and that you have no interest doing with JavaScript. And then in CSS, beyond the basics, we talked about this last time. It's like, do you know what a class is? Do you know what an ID is? Do you know what an element is? Okay, Now, like, once we're beyond that, let's just start solving problems and talk about why we're doing what we're doing to solve that problem, rather than trying to create some step-by-step structured thing to like, okay, we got to learn the little words and oh gosh, so boring, so boring. Give me something to solve and then walk me through how you're solving it. And let's start with a basic problem. Don't start with a crazy problem. Start with a basic problem. Then give me a new little bit bigger problem and then a new little bit bigger problem, right? And in those problems and solving them, you're gonna learn all the concepts that you need, the logical process of thinking through it that you need to learn. I think that's way more interesting than how most courses are structured. Okay. I'm still confused about the minimum size, scale, dimensions for images on a web page. Do I have to take care of the source set, et cetera, manually, or do the apps take care of that? Okay, yeah. I think you were asking the same question as the one that we did earlier. How do I code CSS grids that are not really grid shaped? So e.g. having a first element that's full width or have one element that's 2 columns wide or something like that. Okay, we can close this now. We're done with that. Let's bring this back into view. Great. We can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of this. Okay. All right, so let's talk about grid. I think maybe the easiest way to do this is just to throw images in here. So let's just use this guy. He's thinking deeply about CSS grid. And I will just put 4 of him in there, okay? Look how I have duplicated the image 4 times, and Bricks is like, I'm only gonna give you 2 of them. Fantastic. All right, so let's refresh, see if we can actually get 4 images to appear. There we go. Okay, good. So we're gonna open this. Here's our container. Okay, first thing about grid, display grid, right? The good thing about CSS, unlike JavaScript, unlike a lot of things, HTML even, I think CSS is probably the most literal, okay, language. And the syntax is the easiest. And especially when you're doing this in a builder, the builder removes all the syntax. Like you don't even have to remember, all right, where's the semicolon go? Where do the little brackets go? Like that's all taken out of the mix. Now it's just a matter of like literal property names for things. So like I want to display this as a grid. Great, set display to grid, right? You see how literal that is? And that's most things in CSS. Most things are very literal. Now, grid template columns. The concept you have to learn here is the concept of a fractional unit, an FR, all right? So once you know that, okay, grids are made up of fractional units, then you kind of know enough about grid to get going. The basics of grid, right? If I do 1 fractional unit to 1 fractional unit, here's my 1 fractional unit to my 1 fractional unit, and then it kind of just repeats on its own, okay? It doesn't matter how many images I add to that grid. But the thing with grid is it's always going to create equalness, evenness, right? It's not out of the box going to create bentos and different sized elements and things like this. So whatever you do, you're just gonna get an equal number of them, right? In a literal grid, which is why it's called grid, because a grid is a grid is a grid is a grid. But you can make things break out of the grid. And again, in a page builder, it's actually doing heavy lifting for you. So if I select a child, right? Actually, it's not doing it in this case, which is unless Bricks change something. But usually, let me wrap this with a block and see if that, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, wrapping it with a block actually matters. Watch this area of the toolbar. When I wrap this in a block, you're gonna see 2 inputs magically appear. So we're gonna wrap this in a block. Look at this, grid item, right? Okay, so let's get rid of those. Let's use wrapped images. Is this the beta is this the 1.9 beta? Like what is Bricks doing that it's unable to render what I'm asking it to render? Let's go check. I swear I upgraded. Appearance, themes, 1.9.9. This is not beta. Bricks is having a little bit of 1.9 struggles. Okay, let's go back to home. So we got to refresh the builder to get it to actually show me the content. All right. I don't know what's up with that. If Charoff is watching, I know he's in the streams a lot. Maybe we'll investigate that. Okay, figure that one out. Okay, so now I have these controls right here, right? which allow me to span across different rows, right? Okay, so I span 2. Now, the other thing you have to know, this is where a beginner would get confused. And I empathize with beginners right here, right? This image is not 100% width. So it's like stopping at its actual large size that was put in. Like if I put full in, it's gonna go to the edge, right? But you wouldn't think that that needs to happen. You wouldn't think that that's causing the problem, but it actually is. Style, layout, width, 100%. If all my images were 100% width by default, that wouldn't happen. All right, but you see now that I'm spanning the image across 2. If I want kind of like a bento thing going on, right? I obviously need more than 2 columns. The problem is I only have 2, and you can't span 1.5, okay? So you can only span holes. So I would need 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, and now look what's happening, right? So fractional units make more columns than you need, and then you have more freedom of how many columns you're spanning things, which is why a lot of people do a 12-column grid, and then they do a bunch of spanning. Because if I have 12 columns to work with, I can choose a bunch of different ratios within that 12. The less columns you have in your grid, the less wiggle room you have for spanning certain things across those columns. Now, this is, again, where I empathize with beginners, right? 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR gives me 3 columns. I could also say repeat 3, 1 FR, and I get the exact same freaking thing. I could also say repeat 3, min max 0, 1 FR, and I get the same exact freaking thing. I can even go min max 0, 1 FR outside the repeat just 3 times. I get the same exact freaking thing. I empathize. There's a lot of ways to do the same exact thing in CSS. Now, do they do the same exact thing? Not really. 1 FR by itself does have a potential to overflow the grid, okay, in certain scenarios. Min max 0, 1 FR, if we break this down, is setting a minimum value and a maximum value. I said this is a very literal language, okay? Min max. It's like I'm setting a min, I'm setting a max. Let's call it min max, right? Okay. Now, the min is gonna be 0, right? The max is gonna be 1 FR. The reason overflows can happen in 1 FR is because you're telling the children to be 1 FR, 1 fractional unit wide, but some children have a minimum width that they can be, right? And their minimum width is gonna override what the grid is, because the grid actually isn't setting a minimum of any kind, right? The grid's just like, just be 1 FR. But on a very small screen, that item may be like, I can't fit into there because I gotta break out because I gotta be bigger. Something else is telling me to be bigger, right? But if you do min max 0, 1 FR, you're saying, no, I want my children to be allowed to be 0. Like literally let them be 0. And then it just prevents overflow in certain scenarios, okay? So it's safer. So what I would do is instead of writing 1 FR, I would tend to always use a min-max function, because then we could just avoid random scenarios where you might accidentally overflow your grid in some capacity, right? Okay, and then you have repeat functions that we add in there as well. And this just allows you to say, all right, repeat 3, min-max 0, 1 FR. I can easily say 12, right? Versus like, until I get to 12. Like nobody wants to do that, right? Nobody wants to do that with their life. So you use the repeat, makes life a lot easier. Okay. Grid, we could go on for days. With grid. I think one thing, beginners, if I was gonna give you a tip, just try to remember that CSS attempts to be very, very literal, right? So if you're thinking, all right, I wanna add a border radius, okay? The property is literally called border radius, all right? Now, in your beginner mind, you might be like, I want to round the corners, right? Okay, so yeah, it's not called round the corners, right? But it does have a very literal name. And they tend to not be abbreviated, which is good. You don't have to remember a lot of abbreviations, which is also a rule that I follow in automatic CSS. We don't abbreviate things because abbreviations add lots more mental load to what you're trying to learn and do. If we just call everything by its literal name, it actually works out. It's way easier. It's way easier to learn. It's way easier to apply. Because then you're always in a situation where like, what is the abbreviation? Was it this? There's many ways to abbreviate things. It's like, was it this version of the abbreviation? Was it that version? Abbreviation causes lots of problems. Just use literal, spelled out property names and you're good to go. And that's what CSS does for the most part. I think a lot of beginners believe that it's way more complex than it is, instead of just acknowledging, wow, it's actually, the syntax is quite simple and the names are very literal. Okay, you can almost just guess what a proper name is just by knowing what you want to do. Okay, so use that to your advantage. Starting a quick build project today. Should I start with ACSS 3.0? Yes. Okay, good. Easy question. WS form, basic contact form best practices. Who should the from email be from? Your admin email or the sender's email? Better admin, notification, email design. Any other tips? Okay. What is that plugin called? Because they're owned by Active Campaign now. Postmark. So every one of our sites is managed with Postmark. I think it's postmarkapp.com. Yeah, right here, okay? Really like this service. So this handles the outgoing, basically the email sending server for your website for transactional emails. So if somebody is like resetting their password, if you're submitting a form, right? These kind of things, transactional emails. This handles all of that, makes your deliverability very high, yada, 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 okay? Now, when you go into, I think I have a form in here. Let's see. I think this is the install where I just did that other form tutorial. So let's go to WS Form. Let's go to Forms. Okay, that's post management. Let's just add new and let's go with Contact Us. Okay, so this kind of gives us an easy contact form out of the box. Now, obviously, this is going to be a little bit different workflow depending on the form plugin that you actually use. I highly recommend WS Form for an ungodly list of reasons. So already there's actions preloaded for you. So it's going to save the submission to the database automatically for you. It's going to show a message automatically, which if you don't want to show a message, let's say you want to redirect, okay, delete the action for showing a message, add an action that says redirect. And now you fill in the URL where you want to redirect it. Very easy, right? Okay, and then send email. Okay, when you set up in Postmark, what you're going to do is you're going to create a branded email for the company. This could be like for me, hello@geary.co for my site, right? So hello@geary.co. So I'm going to register that with Postmark for that server, for that site, right? And that way I can send email addresses from hello@geary.co. Now you want to obviously collect the email address of the person that's actually submitting the form, right? And you want to use their display name, right? You want to put in the to, whoever that's going to, wherever that needs to go. Again, that would be hello@geary.co for me. And then the reply to needs to be their email address. So when I click this little button and I select email, it's pulling whatever their email is right here. It's pulling and putting it in the reply to. This is really the biggest thing for me because I hate it when this is not set up right. They send you an email, you hit reply to the form, and you end up replying to yourself, right? Because the reply to field wasn't set up properly. Their email needs to be in the reply to field. That makes it super easy to hit reply. Now it's going to them. We're all good to go. But again, WS Form, rely on your tools, does most of the heavy lifting for you. Notice it's already using like the website's email address for sending. It's fairly easy to set up. The key thing is Postmark. What I see a lot of people doing is just relying on, I think it's called WP Mail or something, like the inbuilt mail sender in WordPress. Very low deliverability, lots of problems. Some hosts, depending on the host that you host with, they don't even have email sending set up, right? And so no emails are going to be sent at all, right? If you don't set up an SMTP plugin. So I would highly recommend Postmark. Very easy. So once Postmark's in place, set up properly. I don't think I have it. Let's go see how it's set up here. Dashboard. Maybe I have a working version that I can show you. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Because it's very easy to set up if you haven't seen it before. Settings. Where is it? I think it's in settings. Postmark. Here we go. Active campaign Postmark. So you put in an API key, message stream outbound. There's my sender email, right, that I said. And then there's a couple different toggles. You can send a test email to make sure it's working. It's very, very, very simple, right? This is key. This is the key part that so many people miss. Now, there's Fluent SMTP. If you prefer using that, go use that, whatever. But you need one of these services to help you out. Don't rely on WordPress's default WP Mail, whatever it's called, thing. That would be the big mistake in this regard. Okay. Have you ever done custom non-WordPress dev? If so, what would be your preferred stack? No, I've been on WordPress since 2005. It's all I've ever done and touched. Now, I've played around with Wix. I played around with Squarespace. I played around with Webflow. I played around with a numerous amount of platforms, but I've had no interest in doing a project in any of them. Okay, what's your honest opinion about Divi? Covering my eyes. Okay. Divi and Elementor might as well be like cousins. You know, they output the same messy code. I think Elementor is improving in this regard. They have a bunch of magic areas. They don't have a class first workflow. They have a really poor, you know, underpowered, we'll say, underpowered query loop. It's just not, neither of them are good. Neither of them are good. And I honestly, you know, they have completely different interfaces. So the people are like, to me, Divi versus Elementor is literally like Apple versus Microsoft. It's like, I just prefer that over this. Why? Well, usually their reasons boil down to, I like the interface better. So some people like the Divi interface better. Some people like the Elementor interface better. I've never heard a technical argument for Divi over Elementor. It's always like UI preference, essentially, because technically speaking, they do essentially the same things and they're equally as bad at it. So, you know, like there are viable technical reasons why you would choose Bricks over either of those. There's no technical reason you would choose Elementor or Divi over Bricks, for example. Bricks is so technically superior to both of them that it's not even funny. It's like people think it might be close. It's not in the same universe. So it comes down honestly to UI preference. And if somebody's like, I like Divi's UI, I don't care. I don't care. I mean, they're both bad. So congratulations if you like that UI of that bad builder better than the UI of that bad builder over there. That's the lowest thing on the totem pole that I would worry about, given the technical problems that both of those builders have. Okay. I created pages instead of custom post types for services and service areas for my son's site. Do I need to start from scratch using Bricks, ACSS3, and Frames? Have the plugin ACF? No, because custom post types and custom fields is more content management and data management and data infrastructure than it has any. It doesn't have anything to do with Bricks or Frames or ACSS. So if you built, in fact, you built a site in Divi, right? What you did with CPTs and custom fields is preserved. It's independent from whatever was happening on the front end, okay? So you could just open up Bricks and ACSS and Frames, install it, create a template for the CPT, pull in that dynamic data, you're off to the races. Nothing needs to change with regard to the CPTs that you built or the data that is in them or the custom fields that are attached to them. You could completely swap out the front end and all that is still as you left it in the back end, that's what's fantastic. People get into problems where they build a site with Divi and they didn't use custom fields, they didn't use CPTs, everything is in Divi, and now when they switch away from Divi, their whole site implodes, right? None of their data is protected because all of their data is stuck in Divi. Their data is not in CPTs, their data is not in custom fields on the back end. It was literally all in Divi. Even their blog posts are in Divi. The literal content of their blog posts is stuck in Divi. These are disasters. This is an absolute disaster scenario, right? That's why I always say, okay, we go here, posts, right? If you're gonna write an article, here's my articles right here, okay? Let's pull up an article. Let's see what an article looks like. Are you gonna see WordPress or are you gonna see Bricks? What are you gonna see when I click on this article? Let's see. So we will open it and you see an article, okay? You don't see a builder, you see an article, right? Okay, that's what you should see. If you open up a blog post and you have to go in the builder to see the blog post, my friends, that's a fucked up install. That install is fucked up, right? Stay far away from that. Like you pull up a client's website and all their blog posts are stuck in a literal page builder, just jump off the bridge right now. Just jump. That is a disaster scenario. Or you can just inform them, I'm sorry, the price of this project just doubled based on what I just saw on the back end. Somebody really effed that up, okay? Never, 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 never take data that should be on the back end and store it on the front end. Never, 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 never. That is the worst case scenario. Okay. How would you build an MP3 player for musicians, bands, Sonar plugin, ACF, or something else? I would not build it. I would not build it. I would use a player that is already in existence. What is that player that Pat Flynn created? Pat Flynn audio player pro. Oh, they changed the name. Is it called Fusebox now? Oh wow, they've done a lot more with this. Okay. This used to just be literally an audio player. Looks like they've done, yeah, here we go, track player. I would install something like this, 100%. Because they give you an archive. Why don't they have a demo of it? That's just a screenshot. It'd be nice if they had a demo. But now it looks like they host audio as well. But that's what the player looks like right there. Really, really well-designed player. It's a beautiful player. It's got a lot of features in it. As you can see, if it's linked to some sort of feed system, people can actually subscribe to it. It's just out of the box, bang, done, box check, move on with your life. The idea that you're going to custom build some sort of MP3 player thing, I would just use something like this for sure. Okay. Is there a quality, reliable freelance provider site to hire quality freelancers? I've used Freelance, Get a Freelancer, Fiverr, and a few others. Really had good results. No, I mean, it's going to be very hit or miss. Everything is going to be very hit or miss. What you need is the easiest possible way to find like 5 to 10 developers, right? And you give them a test project. You pay them to do the test project, and you see what the results are. Okay. And what I would also, by the way, ask them to do, record a little Loom when they're done and walk you through how they did it, why they made the decisions that they made, see if they can communicate, see if they can do the Loom, see how good their English is, things like that, if that's important to you, and see what their logic was, right? And so then you assess, maybe it's 5 people, maybe don't do 10, maybe do 5. You assess those 5 people. Obviously, there's going to be a big variance between those 5, okay? And then that's going to help you make your decision. But don't just like take people's word for things, look at their resume. They might send you, I've had people send me sample projects. I looked at them and I was like, are you sure this was you? And then I dig in a little deeper and they're like, well, I mean, I worked on that project. Like I was part of an agency that worked on that project. And I was like, well, what part did you do? And, you know, it turns out that they like updated some plugins once. They didn't actually develop any part of the, like people will literally, you know, I was a part of a project, so it's in my portfolio, that kind of thing. That's why I always say, test project, do it from scratch, record a Loom, tell me what you did, walk me through it. That is the number one way in my estimation to figure out who knows what they're doing versus doesn't know what they're doing, or, you know, how far along are they? The other tip I will give you is absolutely, it is way better to just find people who already know what they're doing. Don't have this thought in your mind, well, I just need somebody who is coachable, who's teaching. No, ain't nobody got time for that, okay? Hire somebody that already knows what they're doing and you can literally just plug them into your workflow, okay? That is the best way to do it. They're gonna be more expensive, right? But let me tell you, thinking you're gonna train it doesn't get more expensive than training somebody. I don't care if they're free, okay? All of the time that it's gonna take to train them is madly expensive, madly expensive. So just find somebody that already knows what they're doing and plug them in to your workflow and be done with it. That's it. Okay. What is the best way to upgrade to ACSS 3? Should we delete, remove anything from previous installation no. Here's the easiest way right here. You go into automatic CSS. What is this one? This one's on, actually it doesn't matter. This one's already on 3.0, but you'll have the same screen right here. Import, export, this exact same screen. Copy this, okay? Because the only thing you need to know is there's no downgrade path, right? This is your downgrade path right here. So you just copy this, put it somewhere safe, then go upgrade. Now, nothing's gonna happen because we've already upgraded a whole bunch of websites, right? You might have one little setting here or there, maybe a slightly off. And if there is, report it, okay? So we can fix it. But I've upgraded many sites now, no problems whatsoever. But if for some reason something implodes on you, then all you have to do is paste this in and hit update, and it's gonna bring you back to, like, put 2.8 back or whatever it was, and then paste this in and hit save, and you're back, you're restored, you've downgraded, right? This is your downgrade path right here. Again, are you gonna need that? No, you're not gonna need that. But in the 0.0001% chance that you need it, I told you to do it, and there it is. It's in your safekeeping area, right? But it's gonna be fine. You just upgrade it and check the site on the front, clear all caches, check the site on the front end, see if everything's good to go. Anything that's deprecated that was off will be, like, that's off now for new sites, will be on in your case, okay? So we take anything you were using on your old site, if it's deprecated, we leave it on. So it's still gonna work, nothing's gonna break, right? That's why there's really nothing for you to do. You just upgrade, you hit save. Now, what I will also say, don't be like, well, action was deprecated, so I'm gonna turn off action and I'm gonna go swap everything over to Prime. Oh my God, that's low value work. There's no ROI in doing that. Action is deprecated, but it's going to be permanently supported. So just leave the site the way that it is. Don't swap anything out. Don't redo work. You don't have to do any of that. Just upgrade, save, move on with your life. That's it, okay? On new projects, you follow the new things, right? And you leave the deprecated stuff off, but that's only on new projects. Don't touch your old projects. There's no ROI in messing with your old projects, okay? All right, good. What is ACF for? I see it mentioned everywhere, but I'm not sure what it does. Great, that's the exact perfect beginner question, okay? So we're gonna go to plugins. Here's Advanced Custom Fields Pro. The minute you put that in, it adds this menu right here that says ACF, right? And you have some options. Field groups, I actually think this is in a terrible order, okay? Tell me this, guys, do you create your custom fields before you create your post types? I don't. I think post types should be at the beginning. But you have field groups, you have post types, you have taxonomies, you have options pages, you have tools, and you have updates. Okay, let's go to updates. Let's start at the very bottom. This is where you put your license key in. You hit save. You'll probably never come to this screen ever again. Okay, let's go to tools. See what's available to us in tools. Here's where you can export and import things. You don't need this right now, so just ignore this area. This is only needed if you actually have to transfer something from one site to another site. Okay, let's talk about options pages. An options page is essentially a page of custom fields, custom data, where you could be like, okay, what is the brand's logo? What is their phone number? What is their address? You can create an options page to store this data, and then you could dynamically call that data into different places of the website. I would ignore this for right now. This is a little bit more, like, I would say maybe a more advanced use of advanced custom fields that's not actually required on most websites. It's just kind of a nice to have thing. Okay, these top three options are where you're gonna live, right? So you're gonna live in field groups, you're gonna live in post types, and you're gonna live in taxonomies. You gotta know what these three things are. So I'm gonna start with post types because that's where I think things should start. So let's say I'm building a services website. I don't want, here's what people would do, beginners, this is what beginners would do, and they're dead wrong. And I don't care who wants to argue that this is the right way to do it. This is the hill that I will die on repeatedly, and I will send other people to die on this hill as well. I will be a general, and I will just march people onto this hill to continue dying day after day after day. If you come in here and you do something like this, okay, services, publish, okay, and then you come in, there's my services page, okay, and you're gonna add a new page, and then you say, all right, service number 1, and then you come over here to page attributes, and you're like, my parent is services, okay, publish, 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 okay. If you do that to manage all the services, I cannot tell you how much I can't stand seeing this when I pull up websites, because this is not, then you have to do this with other things too. And this pages area of WordPress essentially just becomes a giant junk drawer. Just every idea that everybody has is a fucking page, and they just throw it all in here, and there's different hierarchies. And then when you're like, you know what, I want to use a loop, or I want to use a template. What an absolute nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. This is not the path that you want to go, okay? And this is why I say, WordPress, instead of playing with the block editor, okay, for years on end, they could have done a better job, like actually evolving the CMS side of things, the content management side of things. But they didn't. So we still have to use things like advanced custom fields. So we're going to get rid of that. Okay. What we're going to think is compartmentalize. We don't want a giant junk drawer. We want nice little organized drawers. Okay. And when you open a drawer, it's like nice and organized. Look at all that stuff. I close that drawer. Oh, Kevin, where are your batteries? Oh, they're the batteries drawer. You open up there's all my batteries. I got the AA's, the AAA's. See, that's nice and organized, right? Think about a toolbox, okay? In your garage, you want your tools, just fucking throw them all in the same drawer. It's like, well, where's this thing? I don't know. It's in the bottom of the drawer somewhere. That's what people do with this pages situation. Advanced custom fields and custom post types allow you to create an actual semblance of organization with your data, right? So we go ACF, post types. You see, I already created one called testimonials. Well, I'm going to create one called services. So watch this. Watch how easy this is, right? Everybody's intimidated by this. No need to be intimidated. It says, what is the plural label? Okay, well, they're services. What's the singular label? Service, okay? Post type key. It generated that for me automatically. You can leave it like that if you want to. Taxonomies. We'll talk about this in just a second, okay? Hierarchical. Hierarchical means, can I nest services under other services? So I have service one, can it have children services? If you want it to have children, turn this on. If you don't want it to have children, turn it off, right? That's just a decision that you make. Now, let's just hit save. Let's just stop there. Let's just hit save, okay? Look what just appeared right here. So now I have posts, which are gonna be always blog posts, always, nothing else. If you put anything else in here besides a blog post, I'll throw you off the bridge myself, okay? Pages, keep this area clean. No reason to do so much work in here. Okay, stay out of this area as much as you possibly can. You want to do your work in here. This is where you want to live, right? So you got your services. Now look what I'm able to do. I can add a new service, okay? Plumbing, right? Publish. Now, where are your services? Well, open the services drawer. Here's my services right here, and only services. That's all that goes in here is services. Kevin, where are your testimonials? Well, open the testimonials drawer. There's all my testimonials. And when I need to loop through my testimonials, guess what? I can tell the loop, hey, look in the testimonials drawer. That's where those testimonials are. Or I could say, hey, look in the services drawer. That's where the services are. Let's pull all the services out of the services drawer. Now try to do that with pages. Try to loop your services when they're all in here as pages, right? Just tell me how that goes. And tell me how managing multiple loops across an entire site goes. Tell me how excluding certain things from loops go when everything is in your junk drawer. Just go ahead and try that out and let me know how it goes, right? It doesn't go very well. Now, what I can also do here, first of all, what you have to understand, pages can't even have a taxonomy. They can't even have a category. Right? It's not a feature of pages. It's only a feature of posts in WordPress. Well, these are custom post types, so they can actually have categories. Now, your posts up here have categories by default, whatever categories you add. You can add a new set of categories, right? So if I go to ACF and I go into taxonomies, this is gonna allow me to add a taxonomy, and I could say like services, service categories, and then service category like this. And then what I can do, again, you choose, do you want it to be hierarchical, not hierarchical, whatever, okay? And then post types, I'm gonna say service. That's where I assign this category to. Let's go ahead and hit save. And now when I go to service, look what I have. Service categories. I'm able to start building an actual data architecture for this website that makes sense and allows me to organize things and categorize things. And now I have a completely new set of categories that are independent from my blog posts, so that when I go loop through things, I can say, I want the services, but only the services that are in this category right here. And my loops become very easy, very efficient, very logical. Again, try to do this stuff when everything is thrown in the junk drawer called pages. So when I do videos on my stack, ACF, okay, and some people like Metabox, whatever, they essentially do the same thing, just a little bit different ways. I think ACF now, in this day and age, is superior to Metabox, okay? ACF is like, I would not build a website without ACF, most likely. Just like automatic, like I would not build without ACF. I would not build without automatic CSS. I could build it without frames, but I wouldn't want to. I would not build a website without WS Form, right? So like Happy Files. I mean, I can kind of get by without that in many cases. It's not like a must absolutely have. If you look at most of my stack, there are gonna be things where it's like Admin Columns Pro. That's really, really nice to have. But if you held a gun to my head, we're like, Kevin, build a site without Admin Columns Pro. I'd be like, okay, I'll build a site without Admin Columns Pro. But if you put a gun in my head, you're like, Kevin, build a site without automatic. No, just shoot me. Just shoot me. I don't want to build it without automatic CSS. I don't want to build it without ACF. I don't want to build it without WS Form. Okay? There's some things that it's just like, I'm not going to do the project if those things aren't there. And ACF is one of them. Why? Because data architecture on the back end is insanely important. It's insanely important. Okay, that's your answer. Was I unclear about any of that? Let's see. How can I wrap an image with custom borders on the top, left, right, bottom border or SVG image files? I got to see an example. These are one of those questions where it's like, because remember I showed you with that content earlier in the stream where I was like, hey, there's 8 different ways to make this look like this, right? If I can't see it, I can't start to weigh the pros and cons of various methods. All right, there's going to be more than one way. And so until I see it, it's like the pros and cons list can't start being formulated. So you'll have to point me to an example. Could you please show the right way to think about bi-directional many-to-many relationships in bricks, movies to actors with pages for movies showing all actors and actor pages? That's probably doesn't fall into the beginner bucket. But bidirectional relationships essentially do that by default and should allow you to manage that by default. So my first question would be, if you're using bidirectional relationships, where are you getting hung up? What's not working, or what is not making sense in the workflow? Because if I take it at face value, bidirectional relationships just do that job automatically. So I would need to know where you're getting stuck. Okay, this is surely the dumbest question, but in bricks, how can I save my changes without having to publish them and not affect the front end until work is completed? Actually, that's not dumb at all. Okay, so if you are doing the services page right here, plumbing, and actually, see, I can't even edit it in bricks. So for those of you who run into this problem, you go to settings and you have to turn on the builder for specific post types after you make them. Okay, so we'll go back into services now, and now I can edit with bricks. Okay, so anything I do in bricks is gonna be seen by anybody on the front end, right? Why? Why is this happening? Okay, heading, okay, and we'll say I can see this, right? Save, okay, and we'll go to the front end. And literally, if I was logged out, everybody would be able to see that. Why? Okay, let's go back here. Here's really the only option natively that you have available to you is whether this is, well, there's actually a couple different options, sorry. So you could make this private, you could make it password protected, or you could just leave it as a draft, right? So if you switch this to a draft instead of a publicly published post, right? It won't show on the front end. You'll still be able to see it in admin when you're working in draft mode, but people on the front end won't be able to see it. However, if there's a published page and you have to come back later and do something to it, and you wanna, mess around and be able to save without those changes being shown on the front end, there's no native way to do that. So what most people do is they'll take the whole entire site and they'll bring it to a staging server. And then they'll do those changes and you can do whatever you want on the staging server. Look at it on the front end, yada, 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 look for bugs, whatever. Make sure it's good to go, and then push those changes back to the live server. Now, in order to do that, you're gonna need a server, you're gonna need like a hosting account that makes that easy. So a lot of them are one click. You're like, set up a staging site, okay, pull from live, it'll pull from live into the staging, do your changes, and then hit push, it'll push it back, and you move on with your life, okay? And it handles all the technical complexity for you. Now, do I bother doing that? On important projects, I do. But on most projects, especially if it's simple tweaks and adjustments, I don't even bother with it. I change what I need to change, I hit save, I move on with my life. But if you're more of a beginner and you don't know, that you could potentially really break something, then probably you want to do it all on staging. That's the safest way to do it for sure. Okay, let's go to when doing blog articles. Is it best to do them as posts in WordPress, or is there any better option? Yeah. Absolutely post. That's what post is for. Are those coming up correctly? Yes, they are. Okay, so if I go back to post, here's what you don't want to do. Here's what you want to avoid doing. You need to, especially when working with a client, you want to get very clear, because what they'll end up doing is they'll put blog posts in here. They'll put press releases in here. They'll put a bunch of shit in here if you let them, okay? You don't want that to happen. So again, in my mind, this part of WordPress is literally for blogging. And that's what the platform was made for, blogging. So whatever goes into the blogging category lives here. Anything else, white papers, newsletters, whatever else that they come up with, right? Does not go here. Does not go here. That goes into a custom post type. Create a custom post type for that thing and let that live over there. All right, this is for blogging right here and nothing more, nothing less. Okay, let's go to, I just watched your ACSS 3.0 buttons video. Still a little backwards on when I should use a button and when I should use a link. Can you show a couple examples of best practice? Great question. This does not even apply to automatic CSS, by the way. This is just web design. This is pure web design. Okay, so let's go here. I'm gonna add 2 links to this page. Okay, I just added 2 links. Let's make them go nowhere. Here we go, save, okay. Let's go to the front end. Both of those things are links. Granted, I empathize with you. That right there says I am a button. I understand that. I fully empathize with you. That's a link. Both of those things are links. Okay, now we can prove this by inspecting it and looking at the code. And you'll see that the code is identical, right? A is a link, okay? Now they have different classes on them. They obviously look different. They both go to the exact same place, which is nowhere, okay? They have the exact same structure. Those 2 things are both links. Now, I'm gonna add a button to the page. Okay, close your eyes. Wait, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna confuse the shit out of you right now. You are gonna be so confused. It's not even funny, okay? If I can do it quickly, let's see. Bricks actually doesn't want me to do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Button primary, let's add this on here real quick. Let's do this, okay. Button, okay, we're gonna do this, Just takes a couple clicks, all right. And one little class, because I can't style it the way Brick styles it. Okay, bring it back. And I did a little shuffle. This is like the ball in the cup trick, right? One of these is a button, my friends. Which one is the button? They both say I'm a button, okay, but only one of them is a button. Which one is the button? Let's go look at this on the front end. Okay, there we go. Let's inspect this one right here. Oh, that's the link. But look at this down here. That is a button. Now they look exactly the same. Let me pull this up on the side here. It's probably easier to see. Okay, so here we are looking in this div right here. A button. Link, button, okay? Now, what on earth is the difference between these two? So as I explained in the ACSS 3.0 video for buttons, Links are navigational. They take people places, okay? So let's say, let's add context to this. Remember, this one's the link, okay? View services, okay? And then this is gonna be sign up. Sign up. What? Dude. Sign up. Okay. Bricks 1.9.9 not treating me very well today. Not just showing mad disrespect. Mad disrespect, okay? Okay, view services and sign up. Now, view services is navigational. I am gonna go to the services page. Take me to the services page. I wanna see the services. That's navigating. That's a link. Sign up is gonna fire a modal in this case. So I want a modal to come up with a form in the modal, and people are gonna fill out the form. That's a button. You need a button there. We're not navigating. We're not taking them anywhere. We're doing an on-page event. When you're doing an on-page event, like fire a modal, that's when you use one of these, button, okay? When you're taking somebody somewhere, that's when you use one of these, which is an A. It does not matter what it looks like. What it looks like is of no consequence at all, okay? Links, whether they look like buttons or look like links, are links, and we take them places. They can look like buttons, okay? But they're not buttons. They just look like a button. Because, and in your mind, you have to separate this. There's the visual description of a button, and then there's the semantic code of a button, right? Those are two very different things. And links can be made to look like buttons. In fact, this link itself could be a button. Even though it looks like a link, it could literally be a button, right? Because we have to manage the semantics separately from how we manage the visual aspect of all of this. That's the best way I can explain it. Hopefully it makes sense now. Okay, setting up blogs in bricks using ACSS and frames. I want to use frames, single post template on an archive, Dave Voice course plus your content helps, but I'm not connecting right. Maybe the question is just how to start creating a basic blog using frames templates. I'm adding to my stack as I go. Pretty basic other than ACSS frames. Okay. I mean, I think we could do this fairly easily. Let's go back here. Okay, do I even have a post? I have a hello world. That's what I have. Okay, we're gonna rock the hello world. All right, so what I wanna do is go to bricks, templates, and I want to go to add new, and I wanna go to blog, single, okay? And I'm gonna choose single from over here, and I'm gonna publish it, and I'm gonna go to edit with bricks, okay? And I'm gonna go up here, first things first, template settings, conditions. Let's assign this to post type is posts, okay? And let's just save that. So until you assign a template, it doesn't know what it's supposed to be affecting, where it's supposed to be pulling data from, and what have you. Now populate content, I'm gonna say single post page, and then I'm gonna say hello world, okay? I'm gonna type that in, I'll hit apply preview. So now we are supposedly, if Bricks is not shitting on itself again, we are looking at the hello world post. The problem is we haven't added anything to the page. Now you could come up here, let's just do this. Let's just do this to start out. Just add a section and then add what is called post content, okay? We essentially want to pull content from WordPress for this blog post, right? So let's hit save. And we wanna see if this is our actual blog post template container. And let's pull this to the top and let's go heading. Okay, this should be the template we see. Content below should be dynamic, okay? Save, bang, just like that. All right, now let's go back into the admin. I hate how it doesn't open in a new tab. Really wish it would just open in a new tab for me. And let's go view our posts. So you see, let's say, hello world. Does it even have any content? Welcome to WordPress, this is your first. Okay, let's go to website, Ipsum. Need some actual content in here. All right, edit posts, let's paste that in. Bang, let's update, fantastic. Let's view on the front end. There's our content right there. So we're dynamically pulling content. How are we dynamically pulling content? It's two ingredients, okay? Here's the content right here in the post itself. We need to go to the template. So remember, if you're gonna connect these dots in your mind, right? Edit with bricks. Both things are happening in the builder, okay? All right, here we go. So we're gonna go up top, template settings, conditions. This is the first key, the first piece of the puzzle. You are telling this template, go to the post type called posts, right? And that's where you're gonna get data. That's where you're gonna find the data that I want you to pull, okay? The second ingredient is this post content module, this little element that I added. What that is doing is saying, okay, this is the thing that actually extracts that content. Where's it extracting it from? That's where the conditions come in. So the conditions is saying where to go get the content, and then the post content element that's the thing that's actually grabbing the content and putting it in a specific area of the template. Now, this is static. It's gonna show up on every single post because it's living inside of the template, right? The template is the thing that gets repeated. This is the part of the template that's dynamic, right? Because it's the post content, it's pulling the post content. So what I can do is I can just delete all of that. I can go up to frames and I can say blog or article or whatever. And let's go blog post Foxtrot as an example. So here's blog post Foxtrot. Now, I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna see there's rich text, which it says, delete this and pull in post content using the post content element. Great. Post content element, I've already got it. I'm gonna hit save. We can change the width of this column or whatnot, but this is where this is coming from. Let me zero this gap out because I have auto gaps on. So let's go to style, CSS. I'm just gonna go root gap 0. Okay, boom, just like that. And let's just go to the front end. Now, some stuff is done for you. Here's the content of the blog post right here. I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna notice, oh, look, this is static content. I don't want any static content. Templates, you wanna avoid typically static content. So get rid of the static content, hit the lightning bolt, post title. Now it's gonna pull in the actual post title. Now, avatar name. This is supposed to be for the author and whatnot, right? We don't want it to say avatar name. What do we want it to say? Click the lightning bolt, search for author. Look, it's right there, author name. Awesome. And then label is, this is an Insta WP, so it's gonna have random users and such in it. Label is for like maybe the author title or something like that, or maybe the author's website. That might require a custom field, right? Or you could say, I don't care about that. Let's just delete it. Now, this is the author headshot. What are we gonna pull in? Well, author. So we have some options here. Hey, look at that. Author avatar is an option. Let's pull in the author avatar. What about this image over here? Static placeholder image. We don't want static placeholder images. Let's delete that. Hit dynamic data. What can we pull in? There's a featured image. Let's go ahead and pull that in. Oh, look, it's not pulling in a featured image. Why might that be? Well, we go back to Hello World and notice over here, let's go open the actual post, edit. We look over here, featured image is blank. That's why it's not pulling in a featured image. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to go set a featured image and update that post. And then when we return to our template, we should have, if I can refresh, we should have a featured image. There we go, right? And so it's just a process of what is static. Let's get rid of the static and let's replace with dynamic content. So here's a date, for example. Ooh, that's already dynamic, pulled in for us. Don't have to touch that. Now, what about this thing right here? Where's that gonna come from? Well, that needs to come from a custom field, right? And we can't create the custom fields for you. Now you could say, I don't want that, and you could delete it. That's very simple, right? But if you do want intros to your blog posts, and let me refresh this so our featured image actually enters the builder. But let's say I do want this intro, okay? Great, let's go back out. Now, unfortunately, you have to go to these magic areas, right? You gotta leave your workflow. I wish you didn't have to. ACF, field groups, add new field group. Let's call this blog post. This field group area is where, see, we've wrapped back around. We're needing the thing again, right? We need to assign a custom field to blog post. So I'm just gonna call it, this is my blog post group, okay? And then it's just gonna be a text field, or I can do a text area field, which is just a bigger text field. And I could say blog post intro, right? Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna assign this to post type equal to post. So I'm assigning these custom fields to the post. Save, great. Go to posts, hello world. And I should have now a blog post intro. This is a custom intro. Can I get it to show up in the blog post template? Okay, let's hit update. Perfect, so now that's committed. I just committed that data to this blog post right here, okay? Now what we're gonna do is we are going to go back to our template. And now, I just did that, and I opened a version of the template that was already open. So this version of the template doesn't know that that new field exists. So what I need to do is refresh the builder. Now it's going to be able to see that new data in there. Okay, and then I can grab this, I can delete, and then I can say blog post intro. Bang, save. And then when I view on the front end, let's go to the front end with my post. There's my custom intro. This is a custom intro. Can I get it to show up in the blog post template? And now every post that I write, like the benefit of this, right, is that every post can have an intro. So I'll say add new post. Okay, new post. I put in my content here. This is my content, right? Bang. And then I come down here. This can have its own unique intro. And then I hit publish. And let's wrap back around to the templating conversation that we had earlier, okay? Let me go to, let's add also a custom field for this. Post set featured image. I'm sorry, a featured image. Let's add this dude right here. Set, update, perfect. And let's view on the front end. So there's my new featured image. Here's my new title. This can have its own unique intro. This is my content down here. Now look, my content of this project is actually managed in WordPress, okay? So when I go to the post, it's in a custom field. It's in the block editor. It's in the featured image area. It's in the title field. It's got categories. It's all managed in WordPress. It is not managed in Bricks. None of this has to do with Bricks. The only thing we're doing with Bricks is displaying the content, right? But it's all dynamic, which means that if I switch from Bricks to something else, I can just get rid of Bricks. All my data and the architecture of the data is 100% safe, okay? I put in a new builder. Let's say, I don't know why you would do this, Breakdance. You switch to Breakdance. You just go create a template in Breakdance like I just did in Bricks. Make the template. It's going to take you 30 minutes. You hit publish, and all of your blog posts, it doesn't matter if there's 1 or 10,000. All 10,000 of your posts now look perfect yet again. Whereas, let's do it the wrong way. Here's what people literally do, okay? Let's go to Bricks settings and turn on the builder for posts. This is what absolute psychopaths do. I'm joking, of course, but you might be a psychopath. This could be clinically, either you're brand new or you're a psychopath, okay? This is my Bricks post. So they will literally do this. They will go edit with Bricks, okay? And I'm editing an individual post, and they'll pull in like a blog post template, and they'll just keep doing this over and over. And they'll like, this is the title of my post, and then they'll come down here, okay? There won't even be a post, there'll just be rich content. They'll literally be in here, like this is my blog post, okay? This is my paragraph. And just statically, they're putting all this content in here, okay? And they might even have this as like a global component or just craziness, absolute insanity. And then, you view this on the front end. And if I had filled out all the fields and data, it would all be here and such. But now imagine doing this 1,000 times. And then we come to the conclusion, we really need to switch away from Bricks. We're gonna switch to something else. No, you ain't. No, you isn't, okay? Because you have 1,000 posts built in Bricks. And there is no switching. There is none. All of those are dead. You don't have that. If you switch away from Bricks, that data is effectively gone. Okay. That's why I said absolute disaster, right? Absolute disaster. Content needs to be managed in the content management system. The builder needs to be used to display that content on the front end. Now with pages, it's okay to put content in pages in the builder because there's not 1,000 of them typically. Now, if there's going to be 1,000 of them, you better template that shit. You better use templates for sure. But like an about page, okay, like I can rebuild the about page. I have the content, in my backup, whatever. Or we're putting new content in there. It is what it is. So you just rebuild it in the new builder. But anything that's repeated ad nauseum, blog posts, right? Anything that there's going to be a lot of template, service areas, a lot of them. Template all day, right? So that's the difference between static and template. How are we doing on time? We got 5 minutes. Okay, dang, there's way too many questions. We can't get to all of them. What area of website creation should I look for my own uniqueness to stand out from the competition? So many different areas. I wouldn't worry about visual uniqueness. I would worry about learning things like copywriting and marketing and things like that's where you can bring the most value to a business. I'm struggling with headings inside section. Is it okay to center all, but mostly I see headings left align? Is some rule of thumb where to center and where to left align? Yeah, generally, yeah, there's a couple of general rules. Okay, we'll just do this real quick. So pages, let's go back to home. We can do this fairly quick. Okay, so let's just add a new container and let's put a heading and text. All right, heading, text, just like that. Let's say on desktop, I want to center everything. So what you could do is you could center like this, and you also want to remember to text align center as well. So now that's all centered. Now I'm doing this at the ID level. Okay, there's a whole discussion about, should I be doing this at the ID? Should there be a custom class? Should I use a utility class? But I'm trying to use native bricks as much as possible, okay? And not get too deep. Let's just do this, keep it simple. Here, I determine, okay, still looks good. Here, I determine maybe at this breakpoint, I want to start left aligning everything. Because typically on mobile, stuff if everything's to the left, it looks clean. Is this an opinion? Yes, it's an opinion. But let's say I agree with the opinion. So now at this breakpoint, I go text align left, and I go align, cross axis to the left. So now look, centered, left. Right? And it's just kind of like, if you just create that as a rule of thumb, like that we're gonna center this kind of stuff on desktop, and we're just gonna left align it at the, what we would call the M breakpoint. So S, M, L, X, L. And then of course you might have more breakpoints in your install. It's neither here nor there, but you decide, all right, we're gonna allow things to be centered at the desktop, and at this breakpoint, we're gonna start left aligning everything for the purposes of cleanliness, if you buy into that opinion. Now, what you don't want to do, never do this. There are some things that you just never do, okay? This is one of them. If you do this, we will throw you off the bridge, okay? That's one thing you never do. Giant chunk of centered text. You would also not do rich text here. So you go rich, like this, okay? Let's put that into here. Let's paste this in. Bricks 1.9.9 is either it's that or InstaWP. One of these is, I think it's Bricks 1.9.9 though. Okay, see that? Don't ever do that. That is an absolute felony violation. Like you're not getting out of the slammer for a while. Okay, lots of rehab needed here. So what do you do? What do you do if you have that amount of content? Okay, well, one, we don't center it. That's step one. You don't center it. So let's go typography. Let's get rid of the text alignments. So that's already starting to be better, but that's still not good. Now, one way we could improve this is we cap the length of it, right? So let's go 50 characters on the length. That is objectively better, objectively neater, objectively easier to read, okay? There's no arguing about this, right? That's terrible. Don't do this. Amateurs would do this, okay? Somebody more professional would do this. That's just kind of an objective reality. Now, is that your only option? No, of course it's not your only option, right? We could do something like call count 2. So we could start to break this thing up like this. We could add more of a gap. We could add, and then I would still probably recommend that we start bringing this in. And this is where you can use like utility classes to make your life a lot easier. We start doing things like this. So now you're creating multi-column text out of this. You're using some sort of visual interest. Here's another thing you could do. Let's just back this up. The fundamental problem is we have a giant wall of multi-paragraph text. What can we do with it? Right? Well, we can put this in a block, and we can put this text in the block as well. And then what we could do is inside that container, we'll put another block, and then we'll put an image inside of this block. And so we are adding, come on, image. Okay, thank you. Let's go with, it doesn't really matter which one. Okay, and then we take that overall container and we do something like a grid 2, right? And so now what you're doing is you're putting visuals next to the content. What does this effectively do? It effectively narrowed the content, which is what I did before. See, narrowing content just kind of cleans it up, right? But we're adding visual interest by putting something next to the content. We could even stretch this content so it takes up the full height depending on the text. But what I would also do is just make the narrative less, right? Say less shit. Usually it's like an author, you know? A good author writes a book, it's 300 pages. A better author writes the same book and it's 200 pages, right? Why? Because it was more concise. They said more with less, okay? Make that a principle, okay? So now you just, this is a better layout. It's basic, but it's way better than what you had before, right? So these are kind of the rules of layout. Now, what I would also say you don't do, like, because I still see people do this. People are in love. And just watch what a client does. People are in love. Where's my typography center? They're just in love with centering shit. I don't know what it is, but they're in love with centering things. This is the biggest, like, fastest way to identify, like, someone who's more of an amateur, right? Don't be obsessed with centering things. Stop all the centering. The centering is madness. Okay, and then we talked about here how you can even come in and you could put a width on this, right? 40, look at this, right? So we're creating a narrow column here. Then you ask yourself, does it even need to be that wide? I mean, maybe not. Then we bring that width in. You could start sculpting the content using different widths, column widths, things like that, to get it to be more visually appealing. You could also use aspect ratios on these images, right? Aspect ratio 1:1, make it a square. Okay, give it a little more life that way. Make it very tall. There's lots of things you could do. But there are some things you don't do, which is like giant walls of centered text, very wide walls of text. Stop all that. You got it. That's a problem that you want to fix with different methods of laying out content, right? Okay, we're gonna have to call it there. That is the end of our time. I have about 40 more questions in the queue that I couldn't get to. Let me hop over to chat real quick and just see what everybody's up to in chat. I wanted to pause a few times to just check into the chat, but I wanted to also maximize the questions. Okay, all right, good. There's a lot of help being given in the chat, which I like to see. Very cool. Okay. Obviously, if you have specific things that you want help with, Inner Circle is available to you. If you are an ACSS user, the ACSS community is available to you. We do kind of prefer you don't ask general web design questions in the ACSS community because it clogs everything up. Anything is on topic in the Inner Circle, literally anything. So go in the Inner Circle, ask whatever you want to ask inside the Inner Circle. ACSS community is kind of dedicated to ACSS stuff, just to keep that clean, okay? Was this helpful? I mean, I know it's very random. It's very quick, okay? It's like, how many questions can we get through in the allotted time? Should I do more of these? Do you like this format? Someone said 50 character width with responsiveness. It's automatically responsive, see? It's not gonna overflow. Now the grid needs a different, we need to figure out where we wanna break it. So we go to grid 1 at M, right? So you can do this with a utility class. You could do this with just the normal thing here. So here's grid 2. I go down here and say, all right, here is gonna be grid 1 or 1FR or min-max 0 1FR. As we talked about, lots of ways to do different things. Now, if you want that to go extend all the way to the edge, 100% width here. Bricks is really on the struggle bus. Oh no, I did it with this. Okay, good. Layout, 100% width, bang. And now you're good at every breakpoint below that. So, but there's no overflow. There's no overflow issues with 40 characters, 50 characters. If there's not enough space, it's just gonna wrap the lines. That's not a overflow situation, so. Okay, good. Everybody's saying more. Love this format. So mad I missed the first hour and a half. Time to get that day job off my back. Yes, sir. Get that day job off your back. Okay, we'll do this more. I think everybody likes it. We'll do it more. I got to get out. Love you guys. I'll be back very, very soon. Have a great rest of your week. Peace.